Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into spiritual awareness today. It's going to be super interesting. We're looking at an article called Exploring Spiritual Awareness, A Journey to Consciousness.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, it's from a website called The Spiritual Seek.
You know what's really cool about that site?
What's that?
It's not just articles. You know, they've got all these quizzes and self-assessment tools, too.
Oh, wow.
Like, they really want you to, get involved and explore this topic.
Hands-on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So this article gets into the heart of what spiritual consciousness is. Like, it describes it as this merging of our individual self with a much larger universal consciousness.
Right, right. It's like finding that connection between, little me and, the vastness of everything.
Yeah.
And, they really emphasize this sense of radiating love and humility when you get to that state of being. Not like ego-driven love. It's something like pure, more connected to something beyond just our physical selves.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like tapping into a universal source.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, so let's get practical for a second. If someone is just starting out on this whole journey, how does this article describe the actual experience of spiritual consciousness? Like, what does it feel like?
Well, they break it down into three key qualities.
Okay.
First is all consciousness, which is more than just knowing things. It's like you actually experience the interconnectedness of everything.
Whoa.
Imagine understanding how your actions ripple outward and impact the world around you.
Yeah.
And you feel that connection viscerally.
That's powerful. So it's not just like an intellectual thing.
No, it's experiential.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they talk about freedom from fear.
Oh, interesting.
Not in a reckless way, but from understanding that life and death are transitions in a larger journey. And this knowledge, they say, leads to incredible courage.
That makes sense. If you can see the bigger picture, you're less afraid of the smaller ups and downs.
Right. And finally, they describe unity and bliss. This is where you recognize the oneness of all creation, and that brings this unshakable joy and a connection with the divine.
That sounds amazing. But they don't just leave us hanging, right? They actually give us some paths to reach this state.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Meditation's a big one.
Okay.
They talk about going inward, connecting with what they call the inner light and sound of God.
Okay.
Almost like a universal frequency we can tune into.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes meditation sound less mystical and more like a science, something we can all access.
Right. And they even mention a specific spiritual leader, Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj.
Okay.
He emphasizes meditation for finding inner peace and contributing to peace in the world.
So it's not just about personal growth then. It has this ripple effect outward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful feedback loop.
Inspiring. What about those of us who can't sit still and meditate?
Of course. Yeah. They also talk about personal transformation through self-reflection, really taking a look at our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Oh, I've heard that called shadow work.
Yes.
Like facing those parts of ourselves that we usually try to avoid.
Exactly.
Can be tough, but ultimately it's liberating.
Yes, and they suggest some other activities like transcendental reading. Have you ever read something that completely shifted your perspective, like a spiritual experience almost?
Also, sure. Yeah.
They also mention selfless service, yoga, breathing exercises, and even fitness as ways to expand our awareness and connect with something larger.
Hold on, fitness. I usually think of that as just a physical thing. How do they tie that into spiritual consciousness?
They argue that working out can help with self-reflection, problem-solving, emotional processing, all those things that contribute to spiritual growth. It's like clearing out the cobwebs, both physically and mentally.
That's fascinating. I definitely have noticed when I exercise regularly, I feel more grounded and centered, like just more in tune with myself, I guess.
Exactly. And they also emphasize mindfulness and gratitude as daily practices.
Of course, yeah.
Being present, appreciating the small things, cultivating compassion.
It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life,
Oh, for sure.
and forget to appreciate the little things that bring us joy.
Right. And all of these practices, they help us connect inward and then extend that connection outward.
Yeah. It's a beautiful cycle.
It is.
Speaking of connection, let's go back to meditation for a minute. The article really highlights its power to connect us with our soul and its unity with the divine.
Right.
They even compare it to something as freely accessible as sunlight or air.
Yeah. And they delve into how it works. Quieting the mind, purifying thoughts and emotions, allowing repressed memories and emotions to surface without judgment. It's about creating space for inner peace and understanding. Had you ever tried meditation? What was your experience like?
I've dabbled in it.
Um, I have to admit, I'm not always consistent. I
Nope.
find it incredibly grounding, though.
Yeah.
Even a few minutes can make a huge difference in my day. But the article doesn't stop at meditation.
No.
They go on to talk about transcending physical boundaries through spiritual awareness, which is an interesting twist.
Yeah. They even quote Philippians 4.13, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," to highlight our limitations and the strength we can find in connecting with a higher power. It's recognizing that we don't have to do it all alone.
That's a comforting thought. But I am curious. They say spiritual awakening can sometimes lead to physical weakness
Oh.
because of these intense internal shifts happening.
Yeah.
That seems counterintuitive. How do they explain that?
Well, they acknowledge that these shifts can be really profound
Okay.
and sometimes manifest physically. They recommend gentle yoga, particularly restorative yin yoga,
Okay.
to help manage those symptoms.
So it's about supporting the body as it goes through this process of transformation. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also talk about practices like breath prayers, walking meditations, even journaling about everyday things as ways to stay connected to the spiritual realm. Even when you're facing physical challenges, it's about finding ways to nurture our spiritual growth regardless of our circumstances.
And I love how they bring up the importance of community here, suggesting things like prayer groups for those dealing with health issues.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we don't have to go through this alone.
Absolutely. Community can be such a powerful source of support and strength. But what's really fascinating is how they bring in something you wouldn't necessarily expect. Fitness.
We talked about that earlier. It is surprising.
Yeah.
But they make a case for it, saying that working out can actually enhance spiritual consciousness because it helps with self-reflection, problem-solving, emotional processing, all things that are crucial for spiritual growth. I have to admit, I'm still wrapping my head around that one. It's not how I usually think about exercise.
It's a unique perspective.
It is.
And they suggest this approach of mindfulness and conscious living should extend to all areas of our lives.
Oh, wow.
From setting goals to nurturing relationships. It's about making intentional choices
Okay.
and being fully present in each moment.
So it's not just about specific practices, it's about cultivating a certain way of being in the world.
Precisely. And they emphasize that this journey of spiritual awareness can be confusing at times.
Right.
You might encounter obstacles, experience doubts along the way. But that's where seeking guidance from experienced mentors or leaning on our communities can be so valuable.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we're all in this together.
We are.
Speaking of community, they also talk about how engaging with traditional religious forms and activities can help us connect with what they call the living spirit.
Right.
They even mention the importance of seeking meaning beyond material possessions and realizing our own divinity.
It's interesting how they highlight community and tradition as these anchors in a journey that can often feel so overwhelming. It's about finding support and guidance as we explore what it means to live a spiritually conscious life.
It makes a lot of sense. We need those touchstones, to ground us when things get confusing. And just when you think they've covered it all, they throw in this fun little quiz to help assess our own spiritual seeking tendencies.
It's like a little self-check-in.
Yeah.
They offer these thought-provoking statements like, spiritual awakening is within everyone's reach.
Oh, yeah.
Do we truly believe in that possibility?
Right.
And then there's, I tend to dismiss ideas that challenge my beliefs or habits. This one really pushes us to examine our own openness to new perspectives and growth.
It's a good one to sit with. It's like they're encouraging us to examine our own beliefs and be open to new possibilities.
Absolutely.
So let's pause here for a moment. Absorb all this. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In our next segment, we'll delve even deeper into the transformative power of spiritual awareness
Okay.
and explore how it can impact every aspect of our lives.
Sounds good. It's fascinating how this article connects spiritual awareness with things you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Yeah, what kinds of things?
Like fitness,
Right.
community involvement.
Yeah, I'm really starting to see how it's not just about meditation or isolated practices.
No.
It's about integrating this awareness into all aspects of life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everything's interconnected and our actions have a ripple effect.
Okay.
The article even suggests that as more people embrace spiritual awareness, it can create a collective movement
Oh, wow.
towards a more conscious and awakened existence.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. It makes me think about the potential for positive change on, like, a global scale.
Definitely, yeah.
But let's bring it back to the personal level for a sec. The article also emphasizes that this journey can be confusing and challenging at times.
Sure.
What advice do they offer for navigating those rough patches?
Well, they highlight the importance of seeking guidance from experienced mentors or leaning on our communities.
Yeah.
It's about remembering that we don't have to go through this alone.
That makes sense. It's like having a map and compass when you're exploring uncharted territory. You need those tools to help you find your way.
Right. And they stress that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Okay.
It's about continuous growth, self-discovery, and a deepening connection with the divine.
What I find truly fascinating is the article's assertion that everyone has the potential for spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
It's not limited to a select few.
No.
It's within everyone's reach.
That's a really empowering message. And it ties back to the idea that spiritual awareness is about recognizing our inherent divinity, that spark of the divine within each of us. It's like remembering who we truly are, beyond the limitations we often impose on ourselves.
So it's not about becoming something we're not, but uncovering what's already there.
Exactly. And they don't shy away from the fact that this journey can be challenging. They acknowledge that embracing spiritual awareness can lead to facing some difficult truths about ourselves, examining our beliefs and behaviors, and even stepping outside of our comfort zones.
It's like shedding layers of conditioning and societal expectations to uncover that authentic self that's been there all along. But that process can be uncomfortable, even painful at times.
Absolutely. But it's through those challenges that we grow, evolve, and ultimately become more aligned with our true selves. And that's where we find lasting peace, joy, and a sense of purpose.
Sounds like a worthwhile endeavor, even if it's not always easy. But what about the practical implications? How does this spiritual awareness actually show up in our day-to-day lives?
Well, the article emphasizes integrating spiritual practices into our daily lives, even in small ways.
Okay.
It's about cultivating mindfulness in everything we do,
Okay.
from our interactions with others to the way we approach our work, our relationships, and even our health.
So it's not about living in a monastery or becoming a hermit. It's about bringing that awareness into the everyday messiness of life.
Precisely. It's about making conscious choices that align with our values and our deepest sense of purpose. It's about being present in each moment, rather than getting lost in the past or the future.
You know, when they talk about being present, it reminds me of that saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
That's a great way to put it. And all of the practices we've been discussing, meditation, mindfulness, gratitude, these are all tools that can help us anchor ourselves in the here and now.
It's like building a mental muscle, training our minds to focus on what's actually happening rather than getting lost in all the noise.
And that ability to be present, to truly experience each moment without judgment, that's where we find true peace and connection. It's where we tap into that wellspring of joy and contentment that's always been within us.
It sounds like a lot of this is about shifting our perspective, seeing things from a different angle.
You're absolutely right. The article talks about questioning our assumptions about the world.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about blindly accepting things as they are, but about looking deeper, seeking meaning beyond the surface. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses and seeing everything with fresh eyes.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, the beauty in the ordinary, the potential for growth and transformation in every experience.
And that shift in perspective is where real change begins. It's not about forcing things to be different, but about cultivating an awareness that allows for new possibilities to emerge.
So it's less about striving and more about allowing.
Exactly. It's about creating space for things to unfold naturally, rather than trying to control every outcome.
That makes sense, but it also sounds like a big challenge,
Sure.
especially in our fast-paced, achievement-oriented culture.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to cultivate that kind of awareness?
Well, the article suggests it's a gradual process, a journey that unfolds in its own time. There's no need to rush or force it. And remember, there are resources and practices available to support us along the way. From meditation and mindfulness to community involvement and even the simple act of expressing gratitude. There are countless ways to nurture our own spiritual growth.
It's encouraging to know we don't have to figure it all out on our own.
Right.
There's a whole community of support out there.
Absolutely. And speaking of support, let's revisit that spiritual seeker quiz the article includes.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's a fun and insightful way to reflect on our own beliefs and tendencies.
Right. Those statements were so thought-provoking. They really made me examine my own attitudes and behaviors and like where I fall on the spectrum of spiritual seeking.
One that really stood out to me was spiritual awakening is within everyone's reach. It invites us to consider whether we truly believe in the possibility of transformation, both for ourselves and for others. Do we see it as something exclusive or something accessible to all?
That's a great point. And then I tend to dismiss ideas that challenge my beliefs or habits. This one really pushes us to examine our openness to new perspectives, to growth, and to stepping outside of our comfort zones.
Absolutely. It's like holding a mirror up to ourselves and asking, am I truly open to exploring new possibilities, or am I holding myself back with limiting beliefs and patterns?
Right.
It's a powerful exercise in self-awareness, and it encourages us to consider what steps we can take to nurture our own spiritual growth. But the article emphasizes that there's no right or wrong answer to the quiz. It's simply a tool for self-reflection, for sparking a deeper understanding of our own journey.
It's like a starting point for a deeper conversation with ourselves.
Exactly.
And it reminds us that spiritual awareness is a lifelong journey, not a destination.
Right.
There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to discover about ourselves and the world around us.
So as we wrap up this segment of our deep dive into spiritual awareness, I want to leave you with this question to ponder. What makes your soul sing? What brings you joy? What fills you with a sense of purpose and connection?
That's a beautiful question to reflect on. And once we discover the answers, even if they evolve and change over time, we can begin to align our lives with those things that truly matter.
Because that's where we'll find true fulfillment, peace, and that deep abiding joy that comes from living a life that's in harmony with our true nature.
As we've been exploring this idea of spiritual awareness, I keep coming back to this idea of presence. It seems like such a simple thing, but it can be so elusive.
It really is a practice.
Yeah.
You know, we get pulled in so many directions. Our to-do lists, our worries, the constant stream of information. It's easy to lose touch with the present moment.
It's like we're always somewhere else in our minds.
Yeah.
Either rehashing the past or like fretting about the future.
Right.
We miss out on the richness of what's happening right here, right now.
And yet, as the article points out, it's in this present moment that we find true peace and connection. When we're fully present, we're not judging ourselves or others. We're simply experiencing life as it unfolds.
That reminds me of something I read recently about mindfulness.
Oh, yeah. It's not about emptying our minds of thoughts, but it's about observing them without getting swept away by them.
Oh, wow.
It's like becoming a curious observer of our own inner landscape.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the more we practice this mindful awareness, the more we start to notice the subtle nuances of our experience, the sensations in our bodies, the emotions that arise, the thoughts that flit through our minds. We become more attuned to ourselves and the world around us.
It's like we're finally able to tap into that wellspring of wisdom and insight that's always been within us, but was hidden beneath all the mental clutter.
Right. And as we cultivate this awareness, it starts to permeate all aspects of our lives. We bring it to our relationships, our work, our creative endeavors, even our everyday routines. We start to see the sacred in the ordinary, the beauty in the mundane.
It's like the world becomes more vibrant, more alive when we approach it with this kind of open, receptive awareness.
Exactly. And this brings us to another key point, that the article highlights the importance of recognizing our inherent divinity.
That spark of the divine that resides within each of us.
I find that concept so empowering. It's a reminder that we're not just these flawed human beings struggling to make our way in the world. We're expressions of something much greater, something interconnected and inherently whole.
And when we tap into that sense of inherent worthiness, it transforms our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. We start to treat ourselves with more kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
And we extend that same compassion to others.
It's like we're remembering who we truly are and living from that place of wholeness and connection.
The article also suggests that as we awaken to our own divinity, we naturally start to question our assumptions about the world.
Right.
We see through the illusions of separation and scarcity.
Okay.
And recognize the abundance and interconnectedness of all life.
It's like waking up from a dream and realizing there's so much more to life than what we've been conditioned to believe.
And that realization can be both liberating and terrifying. It challenges us to step outside of our comfort zones, to question our beliefs, and to embrace a more expansive view of reality.
It's definitely not always easy, but I think the article makes a compelling case for why this journey of spiritual awakening is so worthwhile.
Mm.
It's about so much more than just personal growth. It's about contributing to a more conscious, compassionate, and awakened world.
And the beautiful thing is there's no one right way to embark on this journey.
Right.
There are countless paths and practices available to support us along the way.
Yeah.
The key is to find what resonates with us, what speaks to our hearts, and to make it a part of our daily lives.
So as we wrap up this fascinating exploration of spiritual awareness, I want to circle back to that question we posed earlier. What makes your soul sing? What brings you joy? What fills you with a sense of purpose and connection?
Because when we align our lives with those things that truly matter to us, we tap into a source of energy and inspiration that's both deeply personal and universally connected. We find our own unique way of expressing our divinity and contributing to the tapestry of life.
And that, I think, is the essence of spiritual awareness. Living a life that's in harmony with our true nature, in service to ourselves, each other, and the world around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to continue exploring this incredible journey of spiritual awakening